Oh, I love the smell of new graphics cards. Now today's video is going to be fairly information heavy. What we're going to do is we're going to test the baby Navi card, the AMD RX 5700, with the top 5 most played games on Steam at the moment. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those results and compare it to a mystery graphics card in order to make a point about the PC upgrade cycle in 2019. With the release of Navi, I thought it would be interesting to have a look at how a $350 graphics card performs when it comes to the most popular games on Steam. You know, the games that people are really playing. And then what I'm going to do to kind of make what I think is quite an interesting point at the end of this video is compare it to a mystery graphics card. Now I'm just going to briefly stop the video there and try and guess what this graphics card is. And then let me know in the comment section below whether or not you guessed correctly. Now before we get into the benchmarks, let's just have a quick breakdown of the system that I used to test the graphics card. Now as far as the CPU goes, I was using a Ryzen 7 1700X overclocked to 3.95 GHz. Now I'm using that CPU because it is the best gaming CPU that I have available at the moment. And then as far as RAM goes, I'm using 32 gigs of Kingston HyperX Predator memory that's running at 3400 MHz with a cache latency of 17, and well, the rest of the system I'll just kind of list here because it doesn't directly relate to gaming performance. Now if you want more in-depth testing around this graphics card, so for example how it performs compared to all of the other graphics cards on the market today, and then what kind of thermal performance and overclocking it has, I would definitely go and check out videos from Hardware Unboxed and from Gamers Nexus. They really have excellent coverage on these new graphics cards. But what I'm going to be doing today is use a newly released graphics card to make a point about what the PC upgrade cycle looks like during 2019. And now it's finally time to have a look at what are the most played games on Steam at the moment. Now the order of these games have changed a little bit since the last time I did a video similar to this one, but they're pretty much the same candidates. Number 1 is CSGO, which actually overtook Dota 2 as being the most played game on Steam. Number 2 is now Dota 2. The game that takes the 3rd spot on this list is, well, fairly obviously PUBG. If PUBG wasn't 1st or 2nd, it's kind of gonna have to be 3rd. Game number 4 is GTA 5, which has actually stepped up a ranking, which is quite cool. And then the final 5th spot is taken by Rainbow Six Siege. Now I tested the graphics cards at all 3 of the most popular resolutions, so 4K, 1440p and 1080p. The 1080p results are probably going to be the most relevant because that's what most people game on. And then I just want to make a note in regards to CSGO. Someone recently commented and said that professional CSGO players don't care what kind of performance you're getting with the highest settings in the game because they all use the lowest settings possible so that they have the lowest latency possible. So I did all of the tests again with low settings so that you have that result available. And as you can see, the RX 5700 destroys all of these games, even at 4K. Even with PUBG, you're getting close to 60 frames per second at 4K with high settings. I really think that that's very impressive. Now I think the conclusion that we can draw from just these results in isolation is that the RX 5700 is overkill for most of these titles. Even with PUBG at 1080p, this graphics card is getting 138 frames per second average, which is really good. And then when moving up to 1440p, in all the games except PUBG, you're getting high refresh rate 1440p performance from this graphics card. And with PUBG, you're not super far off at 96 frames per second. It's only at 4K with the more demanding titles that the RX 5700 starts to kind of struggle, and even then it does a really good job. And now with that out of the way, we're going to have a look at the mystery graphics card. Now the mystery graphics card is the most popular graphics card on Steam at the moment, and it's the GTX 1060, the graphics card that I did a very similar video on a couple months ago. Now I just want to put a quick disclaimer over these GTX 1060 results. I don't have access to a GTX 1060 anymore, and I did these tests about a month ago using a different CPU, a quad-core Intel i5 7600K overclocked at 4.5 GHz. Now, I know that that does mean that this is a bit of an apples to oranges comparison, but I think it works really well to illustrate the point that I'm making with this video. Now, I'm just going to quickly flash the graphs. If you want to have a more in-depth look at them, you can kind of pause the video and have a look to see what I'm basing my conclusion off of. Now, I only compared them at 1440p and 1080p because honestly, who games at 4K with a 1060? No, but really, if there is actually somebody that does that, please let me know in the comment section below. I just want to know if there is somebody that genuinely games at 4K with a 1060. Now, as you can see, obviously the RX 5700 is a lot faster than the GTX 1060. And it kind of should be because it's a much newer graphics card and it costs $100 more than the launch price of the GTX 1060. But if you look at the benchmarks at 1080p, which is the resolution that everyone games at according to Steam, if you have a GTX 1060, you're not going to get much of a benefit moving from a GTX 1060 to an RX 5700 because you're already getting above 60 frames per second for all of these games. And honestly, with the 5700 at 1080p with a lot of these titles, there is clear CPU bottlenecks happening. And that's the point that I'm making with this video. I think there's been a bit of a paradigm shift in what the best way is to handle midlife upgrades for a PC gamer. Now, the general consensus has always been you buy a PC that fits your budget comfortably, and then about 2 years later, you upgrade the graphics card, i.e. your midlife upgrade cycle, and then about 2 years after that, you upgrade the entire PC. I think in 2019, it makes more sense to do a midlife CPU upgrade, and then worry about upgrading your system a generation or two down the line. And that's one of the things that's so smart about AMD's current business strategy. Because if you bought a PC with the launch of the first Ryzen CPUs and you bought something like a 1600X with a GTX 1060, now is a really good time to upgrade to a 3600X, a 3600, or even a 3700X, because then you're even getting more cores. And then you game with your 1060 and that setup for a while, maybe even upgrade your monitor before buying a new graphics card. However, this doesn't relate to you if you're upgrading from an older generation system, so something with like a 9 series or a 7 series graphics card in it and one of the older Intel CPUs. I think now is a really good time for you to upgrade your system if you're in that position. If you want more advice on what specific graphics card to buy for your specific budget, go and have a look at a Gamers Nexus or a Hardware Unboxed video. If you want my opinion, you can ask me in the comment section below and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And with that, it brings me to the end of a fairly consumer advice heavy video. If you like this video, do like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Follow my Instagram and Twitter accounts for just kind of like random updates on the channel. And yeah, until the next video, thank you very much for watching.